Okay, I recently had somebody in the comments give me an idea for a video. Thank you for that. Asking about what it's like to be an opening act. And, I've talked about this some in the past, but I figure we could get into it in a lot of detail here. Now, I've got in my hands, I've got a ton of old laminates. Here's one for the Bridgestone Arena outside stage, the plaza stage. Here is one for the band Trick Pony. It says on the back, "This ain't no dress rehearsal." All access, right? And, Trick Pony at one time was a headlining act. When I joined the band, they were kind of on their descent. But we got to experience, we had Taylor Swift open for us. That was a unique situation. Taylor Swift opening for Trick Pony. Yes, it happened. Now, I don't remember the exact date, and can't remember the year, but I remember the gig because I'd kind of seen her on CMT, and this was in the early stages of her career, and she had that long curly hair, and she had a band that was literally like a guy with a bongos and some guys with acoustic guitars and maybe a fiddle. And they were all young cats, and they kind of cobbled in with their stuff. It was totally like a very green artist situation, because Trick Pony was a loud, boisterous, kind of rocking country act. And here comes Taylor Swift with her guy with a cajon and maybe some bongos and an acoustic guitar, a couple of acoustic guitars, and maybe a fiddle or something like that. And they were young kids, and she was very young at the time. And, that was not really the right instrumentation to open. This was like an arena, like a Bridgestone Arena, but a smaller one, probably more like Municipal Auditorium, if you're familiar with that in Nashville. Probably, I'm guessing, a 5,000 to 8,000 seat arena. But I did notice in that performance, she had a pretty decent group of young girls that were all in front of the stage, that all ran down to the front of the stage during her performance and were, "Taylor, Taylor." And you couldn't help but notice there's something going on here. There's something going on here. I'm not quite sure. And obviously the presentation that she was putting on at the time was, not really up to snuff. But you could tell that she was a rising star. So yes, even Taylor Swift experienced being an opening act. Now, I've got other laminates here. I've got an interesting one here. Probably the oldest one that I have is from Cabo Wabo, and that is from Van Halen's club in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. All access. April 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. We played 4 nights there. And here's another interesting one. We played the first inauguration of Bill Lee as the governor of Tennessee. Interesting gig. Here's another one from the Bridgestone Arena Plaza. And shout out to my man Scat Springs and the big soul band. Scat is no longer with us, but may he rest in peace. Incredible performer. And then I've got, here's a Toby Keith laminate, Shut Up and Hold On, all access. There's both sides of that. Let's see if there's a date on here. No date. But yeah, there's that. And here is one of my Colt Ford laminates, just one that I happen to have here. And I am, in this picture, I am Chewbacca, which is pretty fitting. Because if you look at the actual photo, there's me in the back I look like Chewbacca. I had a beard and long hair. And man, certainly with Colt Ford, we opened for a lot of acts. We opened for a lot of big names, whether it was Eric Church or Florida Georgia Line or Keith Urban or Luke Bryan or Jason Aldean. We opened for all of those guys. And I think this is an important video to make. I think whether you're like a local band that gets chosen to open for a national act, and that does happen a lot, especially if you're a band, a local band that has a good draw, that has a good following, you can often find yourself in these opening slots on these festivals. A lot of times they'll put some local bands on the bill. And I know you're excited when you open for a big name act. I was excited, even though I was with a touring act and maybe opening, shows for these big name artists. I was excited, but I knew kind of going in what it was and what it wasn't. If you're a local act and you're opening for a major artist, you're probably thinking, oh man, we'll get to meet, so-and-so, and he'll hang out with us and it's going to be so awesome. The likelihood of that happening, it can happen, but the likelihood is probably it won't. And it's not a dig against the headlining act, but life on the road, it's not easy. And, a lot of times these guys are trying to conserve their energy, trying to conserve their voice. And, frankly, my perspective on this, I never really enjoyed watching opening acts. Now, I did. There were many times that I did watch the opening acts, and especially if I was on an arena tour and there were multiple nights in a row. And there's an opening act that we're touring with. And that happened with us. And I became friends with some of the guys and even did an album with a guy that was in an opening band. He had formerly been in Nickelback and then was out there. It was Dallas Smith, I think it was, or Dallas Austin. Let me know in the comments. But I befriended Ryan Vicadal, who was the drummer. And man, super cool guy, a lot of fun to hang out with. And man, we would whoop it up, and have a few beers after shows. But generally, if I'm on a big, name bill, or say maybe if I'm, the direct support head, to the headliner, I generally, a lot of times, I may be back at the hotel or I'm backstage before we go on. And I don't generally like to go out and necessarily hear the opening band because I'm trying to conserve energy. I'm trying to conserve that. And I've even heard my friend Scat Springs say that when you listen to music, your voice, your throat vibrates. And so it's best, if you're trying to conserve your voice and your energy, to not even listen to music. They tell you don't speak, don't talk for 24 hours, all that. But listening to music can make the voice vibrate as well. So, I would do everything to conserve energy. And maybe that's why some of these stars don't, but some of them just don't have the time. Some of them don't want to hang out. Now, there's others that'll come backstage and they might, share a drink, maybe a smoke. Who knows? Each person is different. And, if you do a really great job of opening up for somebody, you're definitely it's gonna help your situation. It's gonna help you being on the radar. But let's talk about like things that you need to do if you're an opening act. First of all, you're not going to get a lot of stage. You'll see bands, and if this is a stage and the headliner is back here and they've got their stuff already set up, and then you've got another band and their stuff is set up, and then there's another band and their stuff is set up, and then there's you, the local opener. How much room did that just leave with all 4 drum sets set up? All of a sudden, your drummer may be center stage right in front. Now that might be the only way you all can get on stage. And all of a sudden, you're going to find yourself set up in a way that you're not used to, that you can't get your cues the same way, and you're just going to have to deal with it. Your best thing to do is not get upset. Understand you're an opening act, and you just do the best with the space given. They literally might give you that much space. Once your gear is in place, you literally might have, a foot of space to work, in front of you before you fall off the stage. And I know that's difficult, man. I know you want to rock out. This is your big moment. You're getting to open for this big act. And you need to be prepared for the fact that you're probably not going to get a lot of room on stage. Now, there might be some cases where you do get a lot of room. And, that's great. You need to maybe know if they have, what do they call them? Ego ramps, or, places where you can go out and walk kind of into the crowd, above the crowd. Make sure you clear with the stage manager whether those are on limits or off limits. Don't drive the guy crazy, because trust me, he's got a million things going on. But it's okay. Hey, is it all right if we use these ego ramps or whatever? And they'll tell you yes or no. And don't get upset either way. It is what it is. You're there to do a job. And that's the first thing you need to remember. You're not there to make friends. You're not there to pass the headliner your demo tape. You're not there to pitch him a song. You're not there to, for your own glory. You're there to do a job. And that means everybody on time, everybody there, have all your gear working, be professional, have a set list, know which songs you're going to play. Do not run over time at all. If anything, end a minute or two early. The most important thing you really can do is get your gear on and off stage as quickly and efficiently as possible. So do the work before the gig to make sure you've got your stuff in road cases with wheels, so that when you're done, you can literally just roll it off stage, put the lid on, put it back in your van or your trailer or whatever, and you're able to quickly get in and out. Don't be cobbling pedals together that are just flopping and this and that. If all you can afford is a piece of plywood, mount your pedals on the plywood, have them ready to go so that you unplug the thing, you unplug the cable out of your amp, the pedal board goes on top of your amp, the amp is in a case, you wheel it out, and then you're gone. There's nothing worse than an opening act that's just, after they're done, they're lounging around, hey, that was awesome, and they're having a beer and all this, and you're looking and you're seeing their stuff still out on the stage, and man, this show's got to run like that. It's got to run like clockwork. The most important and most professional thing you can do is to get your stuff on and off as quickly as possible. Now, when it comes to sound checks, understand that if you're the low man on the totem pole, and I mean, here's the headliner, here's direct support, here's the support to the direct support, here is maybe an acoustic guy that they've thrown in the back of the tour bus that's opening shows, and then here's you, local headliner. You need to understand that you are very low on the totem pole, and your job is to get in and out of there as quickly and efficiently as possible. Don't run over time. Don't go out of your way to introduce yourself to the different artists. If guys are hanging out and it's just casual, say, hey man, how you doing? You can say in passing, hey man, or whatever, but don't try to germ. If you don't know what germing is, it's like, hey bro, you're really awesome. And man, I really enjoyed this and your album, and great, greasing them and going, hey, can I give you my demo tape? Don't do that. Don't try to big shot either. What is big shot? Big shot is, hey man, we're really blowing up now. We've got our singles getting played on the local radio, and we're, don't try to act like you've got all of this going on. You're there to do a job. Do your job well. Play well. If you play well, if you get on and off professionally, quickly, your gear works, your band sounds good, you're well rehearsed, you have your show down, people will take notice. And that is the biggest way that you can get on their radar as an opening act. And look, hang out after the show. Don't just pack up your stuff and take off, unless they tell you to do that. If they tell you to do that, okay, you're going to have to clear out. Then clear out. Don't say, oh man, don't do any of that. Do what they tell you to do. But if there's a backstage area and you've got access to it and there's, it's okay, hang out for a little bit, have a few drinks, maybe talk, maybe some of the lesser guys on some of the direct support bands, maybe those guys will talk to you and say, hey bro, how you doing? And, and you can meet some people that way. But don't go out of your way to do that. You may or may not have access to that area. You may or may not have access to catering. If you do, enjoy it. Don't overindulge. Don't complain about the food. Don't make suggestions to the cook. I had a guy I played with, and we were on the road. We're opening for a big name artist. And he went to the catering one day, and he wanted some unsweet tea, right? But the headliner, well, they liked sweet tea. Everybody in the headliner liked sweet tea. So I don't know if it was in jest or not, but he said to catering, hey, no more of this sweet tea stuff. I want some unsweet tea tomorrow. Okay, sir. And and he left, and they came back the next day for the next gig. And this person must have told the head of catering, oh, they don't want sweet tea. They don't want sweet tea. So the next day, when the headliner came to catering and said, okay, we'll get my sweet tea. Oh, we don't have sweet tea. So-and-so told us not to have sweet tea. What? Let me tell you something. There was no faster way to get on the list by saying no more of this sweet tea, because the headliner and all his whole band, and in Carolina, they like their sweet tea. And guess what? This guy got labeled as the guy who took our sweet tea. He took our sweet tea. And let me tell you something, man, whether you like sweet tea or unsweet, personally, I prefer unsweet. But man, if you're a sweet tea fan and you're going and that's your daily fix to get your sugar and get your caffeine, and you go backstage and you find out one of the opening acts, it said, hey, no more sweet tea, and that's why there's no sweet tea that day, man, you're going to get labeled persona non grata. And as an opening act, you don't want to do anything that's going to put you with that label. Let me tell you something. Being an opening act is a responsibility. It's a great opportunity, but you gotta make sure that you handle it like a professional, even if it's the first time you do it. Go into it being prepared. Have your gear ready. Make sure everything works. Make sure all your cables work. Think about having, extension cords so that you can reach the power outlets. You don't know how many feet it might be for a drop box. Usually those things are provided, but make sure that you are able to, get 10 or 20 feet, of cable out to the nearest power outlet. And first of all, don't do anything, don't take any privilege without asking somebody, but be quiet, be humble, and when you get on stage to play your opening slot, go out there, have a blast, and play your ass off. This is Bad Brad, and I'm signing out.